Hello and welcome to the Book by Book, a podcast about the odd book or two you've read. I'm your host Scott and I'm not alone. Toby's here too. This episode we're talking about The Colorado Kid by Stephen King. It's going to be mildly spoiler heavy, so be warned, but if that's okay with you, continue on and I'll see you on the other side. Silent disco, but someone was DJing in the house and they sort of WhatsApped it to all the neighbors, and all the neighbors were just sort of like putting up some fairy lights and just sort of flick between the cameras every now and then, and we're all doing it together.
It's amazing how that all worked out. It was nice, like the way it built a sort of community feel and everything that you wouldn't normally get. That was one of the best things I found that came out of that whole experience.
The little things it did bring together.
Yeah, showed you that humans were still capable of niceness.
And not went round, stole their toilet paper.
Give me the sugar.
What have you been watching, reading, and listening to? We've never talked about music.
Okay, well, music. Let's start with the music. What am I listening to? Music. Well, I'll give a shout out to an ex-student of mine when I was in Bath College. She was one of the ones that was always kind of there, would infrequently turn up, never really put any effort into the subject that she was studying, but she's clearly got something.
Turned out quite a shout out.
Yeah, turned out she's really blooming good at music and singing.
Willow Kane.
Yeah, her name's Willow Kane, and she's just got a full page spread in Rolling Stone magazine, which you can find on the shelves at the moment.
Oh, far out. Is that Kane with a K or C?
With a K.
Nice.
And she featured in the FIFA 22 soundtrack, just a 20-year-old, maybe 22 now, out of Bath, just blown up.
Just doing her thing.
Yeah, she's doing really, really well. So,
what kind of music is that?
Crikey. 90s inspired lo-fi hip hop, grime, I would say, as a 45-year-old man who has absolutely no idea about music genres.
There might be words you haven't learned yet.
Yeah, exactly. There's definitely 90s influences like Prodigy and stuff like that. That's influences some of her music. More stylistically, but then she's also got this really quick lyrical over the top of it.
Nice.
Because I got these headphones November last year now in the Black Friday sale. It's the first good pair of headphones. I'm not usually a person that listens to music while on the move. Like if I'm walking somewhere, I don't put music on. I don't put a podcast on. I just walk and listen to the inner monologue of my head. But I was like, you know what? I've got some money. I'm going to buy myself a really decent pair of headphones. And ever since I've owned them, I'm like, wow, this is cool. I listen to music all the time now.
Nice.
What about you?
But what have I listened to? I've still got a big old kink for Crimson Kings at the moment. I've been listening to them hard for like a couple months now.
Okay.
Specifically one album, but sort of treading a bit.
Never heard of them.
No. You'd recognise their album covers from, I guess, the 90s.
Right.
I'm fairly new to them in the last few years. If I'm honest, the movie Mandy features a lot of it. Or is inspired by it.
Cage one.
And it opens with one of their songs. So when I saw that a couple of years back, I just got hooked on that one song. Like I said, I sort of hit things hard. Like I'll just listen to this one album for about a month solid, and then I'll be like, oh, I'm sick of this. And it will just sort of go to the back of the queue, and then in a year or two, it probably comes around.
Resurface,
I've been watching Archive 81, sort of Netflix horror.
Same me.
I love that guy. That Mamadou someone.
Yeah. Because I'm exactly the same as you. I've consumed 4 episodes last night. Not bad. I've also been watching. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but The Guest.
Yes, you have.
Oh my!
Jesus. I've been seeing you talk to me about it, posted it. I feel like anyone who will listen, anyone seen The Guest? Toby's head will prick up out of the grass
like a meerkat. Yeah, it's amazing.
I don't know anything about it.
You need to watch it, Scott. Get on it. So good. There's South Korea or Korea is just they're so good at what they do when they do it well, producing stuff and making the TV shows and these series that look really well shot and really well acted, great scripts, just the music, everything about it's them all. Like I've watched a few now. Silent Sea, I consumed all of that, and
was that good? I watched episode 1. It didn't really blow me away. It was just okay.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I feel like they're very good at embracing the hamminess and making it work.
Yeah.
Well, that's some of the stuff I've seen anyway.
They have a talent for mashing deadly serious and horrific natured stuff with extreme campiness,
over
making
the
the two things, making the two things work. It's very bizarre, but it's great. So I think people should watch a lot more than just Squid Game.
You seem to have a bee in your bonnet about Squid Game.
I just find the level of popular. The fact that loads of people watch it, everybody's like, "Oh my god, have you seen Squid Game? It's so good." Blah 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 blah. What? And it's just like, no, it's not. There's so much stuff that's much better than it out there.
Is it? Do you have to get into it before it's better? Like because I remember the trailer for Squid Game came out, and I sent it to you immediately. Like, we should watch this. This looks awesome. Like, whereas some of them, Silent Sea, for example, the trailer was like, okay, sci-fi where they.
The thing with Squid Games is Squid Game is it's very colourful. It's got an Alice in Wonderland,
got a creative feel to it.
Yeah,
sets.
And that's what it does well, I guess. But
I feel like there's a conversational fun piece about it. Every task, I could have a great water cooler conversation at work and say, I could have done that. I couldn't have done the biscuit one, but I could have done the platform one. I think I could have run quick enough and put enough little pressure and just sprinted that whole thing.
For me, there's not a lot. It's kind of superfluous conversation rather than in-depth analysis of good storytelling or good narrative.
But then that's not pop culture's often.
Yeah, but that's what frustrates me. It's like there's so many people are talking about Squid Game, and it's like that pales in comparison to Possessed or My Girlfriend's a Gomero, or there's so many other things out there that are so much more wittier, creative, visually more appealing.
So it almost feels like sometimes I get not annoyed, but it's mixed feelings with Harry Potter and the fan base, because part of me wants to say, hey, J.K. Rowling got a generation, not a nation, but globally, kids not particularly interested in reading into books.
Yeah,
that's a pretty hard, rare thing that can happen. Good on her. Good on all those kids who got into reading.
Yeah,
but I know some people who stopped there.
Yeah,
like they go, oh, you like reading? You're like, well, what's good?
That's exactly it.
And so it'll be like, oh, okay, so if you like Harry Potter, maybe you'll like this other YA fiction book. I've got one. I'll lend it to you. And then blah blah blah. Like a year later, like, oh no, I read the first few pages. It's not the same. It's not as good. I'm like,
yeah.
No, I wasn't trying to give you exactly Harry Potter rewritten by someone else. It's just it's here's I don't know, the Dark Materials or something. I wasn't trying to compare it to Harry Potter. It was just there's other stuff that you might enjoy. But so part of me is like, well, it's not like they were a reader and they were put off by Harry Potter. They clearly weren't a reader who was put on by Harry Potter, but they're happy not to take it any further. It gives me mixed feelings, because part of me is like, well, they read some 10 Harry Potter books and they loved it, which is better than not reading.
This is another example of that. Not that I'm lumping Harry Potter in the same place as what I'm about to reference, but the E.L. James? No.
50 Shades?
50 Shades of Grey. Like that became a cultural phenomenon. Everybody was reading it, but it was awfully written, turgid writing, apparently. I've not read it, but it was, if you're going to read something, that is not a good example.
That was insane how that caught off, because that was literally Twilight fan fiction. And people are still baffled how Twilight became so big. Not let alone poor fan fiction. But you know what? She just found a market that had a hole in it.
Yeah.
and I've never read any of them. There is a very funny, well, very funny, very awkward, a story that didn't happen. I was just looking, like my dad's somewhat of a reader,
Yeah.
and I didn't really know what the 50 Shades were, but I thought they were crime because it was. So I almost bought him a box set of the 50 Shades, thinking it was going to be crime. I was like, oh, I've heard that that's really big selling at the moment. There's a handcuff on the cover. It was like a box set of all of them, so it was just the cardboard that doesn't have an explanation. So and it was pretty cheap. So I was like, popular crime. They don't look too dense. Maybe he'll like that. And I didn't, but that was lucky.
Bullet dodged. Brilliant.
I get my friend who's let's just say very blue-eyed blonde and very successful on dating sites and goes on a lot of dates. Said that there was just this weird spate of being on dates and then, having a few drinks and talking about what they like, and then basically saying, yeah, they're sort of into fetish stuff, they're a bit kinky. He goes, oh, okay, what kind I really like 50 Shades, but that was it. It wasn't like, oh yeah, do you have I don't know, a paddle? I don't really know how that conversation unfolds, but he said he was on at least 3 separate dates where they sort of proclaimed to be into kinky stuff, I guess S&M, but it hadn't really gone further than they liked that book.
Yeah.
So
I like the idea of it, and it would be great if you could. Yeah.
Well, it's just like in that book.
Mm-hmm.
It's like saying, I'm really into murder. Yeah, I've just read Agatha Christie. It's great. I love murder. It's not quite translate.
Brilliant.
But you know what? These things are out there, and they capture the nation or a set of people. And as someone who loves reading and will always talk, like, I'll be happy to talk to someone about 50 Shades if they love it. And you know what I mean? Like, if it opens the conversation about some kind of reading, I'm down with that.
Yeah, no, exactly. Totally agree. Talking in conversation, what are we here to converse over?
Oh, we did another long intro, didn't we? I totally forgot. Talking of the mystery. Great tie-in. Yes. We've been reading Joyland by Stephen King.
No, we have not.
Haven't we?
No. We've been reading Colorado Kid.
We have been reading The Colorado Kid by Stephen King. Oh, I forgot. I got the name. The name doesn't catch for some reason on this one. I did read that one. I just forgot the name was mixed up.
I hope we've read the same book anyway.
So
have you read Joyland as well?
No. I think in my head I've just been calling it Joyland because that title's nice and catchy.
Joyland, by the way, viewers, if you don't know, is also by Stephen King. It's part of his hard crime trilogy, of which Colorado Kid was the first one, released in 2005. And then you had Joyland, and then last year later. Those are the three that he's done, a hard crime.
So just a little backstory. This is all in the intro, and it's kind of fun. He basically got, like, I don't know, an email from someone who was saying, like, hey, we're creating a new publication set of books called Hard Crime, and they're like a nod to Philip Marlowe and old Pulp Fiction and crime novels. Would you write the intro for one with us? And he said, no, but I'll write one for you. And so this guy was in like massive glee. He was, oh my God, we're like a publication with maybe 1 or 2 authors, but no one as big as Stephen King at that stage. And he's going to write us one. This is going to be great. And then so came The Colorado Kid. Something that blew my mind. It semi got picked up and turned into sci-fi TV show Haven, which has run for
it did.
X amount of seasons. I've never heard of it, but this is like the 3rd or 4th Stephen King book I've found has had some sort of TV iteration that not only had it, but it has been running and has a fan base for years.
Haven was really good. I thoroughly enjoyed Haven. I watched it when it, because I believe I knew it was Stephen King at the time, and I stuck with it for many a season, like 4 seasons, I think it was, and then stuff in my life happened and I fell behind and I haven't caught up. But yeah, it was really good.
So you kind of knew what to expect from this book, or not? You knew it
was no, I didn't know what to expect from this book at all. I had, when I was reading it, it took me back to the first episode of Haven, but that is literally where the similarities end with.
Yeah,
the central conceit is what gave birth to the idea of Haven.
I watched a trailer for one of the random series. I mean, at least compared to this book, it looked like it goes mental. All sorts of visions, lights in the skies.
Yeah, yeah, it does exactly that.
I think the guy talks about how hardcore fans of the book were pretty anti the TV show because nothing stuck.
No.
Just the conceit of finding a body, one character name, but every other character's changed and morphosized so much it's unrecognizable.
Yeah.
But once you get to the end of this book, you kind of understand why.
Yeah.
To an extent, I guess you could have kept those three characters in, but I don't know where you can go.
But then the three characters are there.
Oh, they are.
In the first episode, it's basically those two guys, the two old LD guys who run the local newspaper and investigated into this body. And Stephanie, she ends up teaming up with the detective, solving the very weird and wonderful crimes that keep happening in Haven. So
do you want to give us a quick run through of the book? I don't know if you want to keep this on spoiler free or not. It's an awkward, not an awkward one, but it's a hard one to say what's a spoiler and what's not.
It's very. If you keep it spoiler free, it's very short, really, isn't it? You have these.
Well, I don't know what counts as a spoiler. The lack of spoilers is the spoiler.
You have the two main, Dave and Vince, a 65-year-old managing editor of the Weekly Islander and a 90-year-old founder of the Islander, which is a local newspaper. The reports on the local fairs and all that sort of thing. It's it's a very small, comes across as a very small fishing town village.
Very seaside.
And they're recounting an unsolved crime that's bugged them as reporters for the better part of 50 years or something, I guess. And in essence, it's about a dead body that turns up on the beach and the people that they meet that are investigating this dead body and the reasons behind why he's there, how he died and how he got there and what's his name. And the title of the book, Colorado Kid, is given to him because he's almost a John Doe. But they call him the Colorado Kid due to, I think it's a pack of cigarettes.
He's got like a tax import stamp from Colorado.
And that is the small thread that they keep pulling on throughout the retelling of the story that eventually reveals his name later on.
I've read the first half. It's a very short book. I think if you take out the introduction and Stephen King's outro and the pictures and the blank spaces they bring with, we're talking like 150 pages, maybe.
Yep.
Less, maybe. Like not many. And I read the first 50 in quite a fever. I had to go back and read it the next morning because I had no idea what was going on. For sort of reading it at 1 o'clock with a high temperature. And I thought that for some reason I just got into my head they were in a casino and they weren't good people. They just sort of projected some weird stuff. And then in the morning, it's like, no, it's a 60-year-old and 90-year-old borderline married couple kind of putting an intern through the ringer.
Yeah.
Someone tips a waitress a high amount and leaves. And then they take that tip. And then they sort of ask her, why do you think we've taken the tip?
Yeah.
And so she sort of theorizes like, okay, well, A, you could be assholes. B, I don't know, whatever. I can't quite remember. But she sort of gets the right thing. And it's not a bad thing at all. It's like, it kind of comes down to like, we're going to redistribute this without her being taxed.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Exactly. Like we know her. But it was more about them testing Stephanie's ability to question things. Like confront the mystery.
Yeah, having an open mind.
Because she's, correct me if I'm right, she's just finishing an intern. She's wrapping up a few months of working with them. And then I guess they talk about the nature of their mystery column and what they do and what makes a good story to the public in a newspaper. And that's what leads them to sort of talk about the Colorado Kid. So the book is like a story within a story, I suppose.
Yes.
With these three people taking a lazy lunch afternoon, jetting back, I don't know, did you say 50 years?
Yeah.
50 years. But then from that 50 years up to date, because there would just be gaps of, and then nothing happened for 10 years, sort of thing.
How did you find reading it?
But before I answer that, were you excited to go into this?
Oh, yeah.
It's something that has been like, oh my God, King has done hard crime.
Yes.
Like, you know, when he did Cell, it was like, whoa, Stephen King's done a zombie novel. I love zombies. I love King. how can this go wrong? You
No,
know,
I
when he
haven't
did
read
it.
Cell, but yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like it's King
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
something
yeah.
he doesn't normally do. And in this case, he's kind of done a lot of crime before, actually. But this was advertised as like Philip Marlowe style.
Yeah, so I didn't know an awful lot about it going in, other than it was the kickstart for Haven, and there was a possible supernatural element to it, which goes against the hard crime side of things. I was expecting more of a hard-boiled nature detective novel, and it definitely wasn't that at all.
No,
and that was quite a surprise. I found it quite plodding.
I was going to say
nature.
that guy who wrote the intros. Oh my god, Stephen King's writing us our first hard fiction book. Do you reckon he was a bit
miffed?
I'm not going to say no. It's Stephen King, and we you know, he's just his name is going to make this huge. But what the fuck is this?
Yeah. Well, he said, doesn't he say in one of the breakdowns or the outros that this isn't what people expect it to be, and you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. But this is what I wanted to write. It's like, well, you're Stephen King, fair enough, but it's a hard.
I guess it's that thing of like,
Stephen.
why don't you really sound? Can you write us a hard crime one and then put this
somewhere else? It's a short story in one of your books.
Mm.
Yeah. So I was a bit disappointed in that there wasn't really any detectiving going on, and it was more just three people musing over a lazy lunch for the whole book. I wanted a detective. I wanted.
You wanted
hard crime. It has this gun as the symbol of the hard crime.
You wanted Sam
Mouldering woman, the damsel in distress, the noir style. That's what I went into it going.
You want what they advertised. You want what they told us we were going to get. You will want the illustrator clearly tried to give us. Like, so I not that into crime novels.
Yeah, I was ever read one really.
Going into this going, okay, at least it's short. Like I have over my time read some like Poirot and actually genuinely enjoyed it. And
Okay,
just some random like, I'm trying to think. I can't think of any names, but you know, Scandi crime book of the week, Joe Nesbo types.
Oh yes, no, I have read it. I think I've read a Joe Nesbo before.
When I get into them, I do enjoy them.
Yeah,
but I never go to the crime section of a bookstore.
No.
It's very likely my dad has been reading it and I swing home and he just says, try this out. And I say, okay. So it's very odd. It's like, I don't know, like classical music. It's like someone else put on something good and I'll enjoy it, but I'll never gravitate towards it.
Yes, exactly the same. I agree with that. And
I really enjoyed this, Toby.
Did you?
Yeah. I got to say,
it
finally happened.
You did not.
I really enjoyed reading this.
Oh, wow.
Do I think it's a great book? Not really. I can 100% feel everyone's disappointment, everyone putting it down, going, is this part one? What the F's that? But it felt like Stephen King was having fun. And it was just there on the pages, very unabashed, very, fuck you, I'm going to do what I want to do. And I want to have some fun without any kind of weird King pressure. I think it's just more safe to say this is a story about sort of the idea of what a mystery is.
Yes.
Rather than the mystery itself. Was anyone expecting that? No. Did most people enjoy that? Probably not. But I love the characters. I will say, don't call your character David Bowie. That's so. Don't do that. Come on.
It was a bit weird. Every time he said it, I was just like,
and then with no reference to it, no reference to Bowie. These two old guys, sort of like that married couple, but very respectful.
Yeah, they were great.
Like just the way they're sort of. It's like this book is about them giving the spark to Stephanie. It's more about the next generation of writing.
Yeah,
like they're on their way out, as it were, especially the 90-year-old, and they just want to know that there's people out there who can just take the glee, the fire of mystery, and just, I mean, maybe even this specific case, just check on it every few years. Take the bite and take up the smell. I mean, I wasn't too far into the book when I realized how far I was getting, how little answers we were going when I realized we're not going to get an answer for this. I pegged early on, we're not going to get a clean.
Yeah.
What happened was this. And so as a result, the details were the least interesting bit, which is odd to say because, well,
no, I completely agree with you.
I do feel like we're like 70 pages before we kick off. It's a long intro.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's quite meandering. I didn't have enough to come up with my own theories. That's what would have been a bit more fun for me. At no point am I thinking, oh, you know what? I think he got on a boat with a Russian oligarch and he was like a spy. I could say that stuff, but the amount of odd details and yes, because of this, but no, because of this was hard for me to visualize. So any theory I could have come up with, I would have just been kind of making crap up.
Yes, exactly.
I sort of needed one of those boards with a bit of string and the pictures that
but there was nowhere for the string to go, and that, like you're saying, that's exactly the problem with it. There was nowhere for your piece of string to go. You have your dead body, and then you've got this string or multiple strings, and none of them have got anywhere to go apart from the one that they do pull on a little bit, and it just, again, it leads to the name, and that's it. The rest of it just like doesn't really matter, does it? Just, we don't know. Sorry.
What does heaven say happened?
Haven alludes to there being a shed that, if I remember rightly, a shed that acts as a teleportation unit.
Whoa, Don King. Because I think the setup within the book is that I don't think we were talking about. So a guy is found with no ID on the beach, and he basically died of like a hamburger or a steak, like he choked on something. And the more you look into it, the more like, okay, so they sort of find out his last known location, but it's like 100 miles away, like 8 hours ago or something along the lines of that. So that's when it's like, so how did he get here? He could have driven, but you've driven on these roads. He would have had to drive straight and never make one mistake or stop.
Yeah, and the last time he was seen was in his office building, leaving his office building at a certain time, which basically leaves a window of opportunity for him to make that drive, as leave the office, get in the car, drive straight away, and don't stop. And you may just make it if you don't get held up in any way whatsoever. Straight line, as the crow flies, almost, type of thing. So they rule that out as a possibility, so on and so forth.
I can't quite remember if it's like he was eating a lobster roll, but you can only buy a lobster roll like 3 hours away on a boat. And there's basically anything you think X, there's always a Y to sort of not counter it, but like muddle the crap out of.
To truncate it with a but.
Yeah, I don't know. A very short book. I don't have super many thoughts. I will say the one thing he didn't capture for me was any level of painstaking. I have to know. I would have sort of feel like one thing would have been missing would be like maybe the 90-year-old being 90, so probably questioning his mortality or knowing how much time. And so knowing for him, he'll probably never know. Like I've listened to the podcast Serial, and there was the TV show Making a Murderer. And there's moments where I suddenly realized no matter what happens, I don't think I'll ever know. If this guy confesses, that's the only way that I would feel like I know what happened. If the guy in either respective, the podcast I talked about Serial, and if you haven't heard about that, it's like I think it's held as like the best podcast ever. At least it was for a long time. It's literally a cold case about a young high school girl found murdered, and her boyfriend was accused and is in jail. And a podcast reporter just let's look into this, and just goes down a rabbit hole. And it's I don't think exciting is the word, but it's fascinating. Oh my God. The fuck ups along the way. She uncovers brand new evidence and witnesses, like live on the podcast, as it were.
Wow.
And so like the Making a Murderer, I think that's probably the more famous one. Like I said, I come to this point where I suddenly realize I'm never going to have a satisfactory answer for this. And I'm flipping frustrated. And I don't think panic's the word, but I'm like, oh my God, we're in a world where this thing has happened, and there's so much gaze and media attention and lawyers and forensics. and it kind of comes down to 2 or 3 people in this world know what happened, and I don't think they're speaking. And as a result, no one will ever know. And it just suddenly sparked this frenzy of driving me crazy.
That's amazing.
And this book didn't have that.
Yeah.
This is going to be my point.
But it's interesting that you enjoyed it so much, though, because I get what you're saying. It's 184 pages long, by the way. And yeah, it is. Like, the characters are really well drawn. Like, I really felt for the 3 central characters, and the body, in a sense, as characters, they're really well drawn. It's just the central conceit is so it just doesn't go anywhere, and that for me becomes frustrating. And left me.
I could see that for sure. Yeah, because like we're saying, like, the character development, but they don't really develop them. You get to know them and where they are now, but there's no bridge for them to overcome. I guess the only arguable thing is it comes down to Stephanie. Like, have you picked up the hunt, but not literally the hunt for this story, but the hunt for story and mystery in general. We don't get really any of their backstories, as it were. Like some town history, and I will say, Maine has never felt smaller.
Yeah.
Like, we literally feel like me and Toby went to uni at a small seaside town called Weymouth, and it felt like this was set in Weymouth, like a very small end of the story. And I guess it was supposed to. That's kind of the point of, not the point of it, but a lot of his musings. When we did the Outsider, there's a lot of musings on like what happens to small towns, blah blah blah. But this is more of a village. We've gone even smaller.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if King has some like journalistic history in him, if he worked for papers or something, or he must certainly know reporters. And I imagine because of his writings, he's someone who just gets shit through the post all the time. People stop him and go, "Oh, Mr. King, I must tell you about this thing I read on the internet about an unsolved mystery." He must get that like to the hilt just because of the nature of who he is. So I guess, it's more his essay musings. What it is to take up a mystery, what a mystery should be. There's this part where he talks about, I think that the 2 other people talk about why they never gave this case out to other papers.
Yes, I really enjoyed that bit, actually. That was a really nice insight.
Like a story that's horrible, like a murder story where the guy gets caught and killed. They say, why is that a happy ending? I think she muses, because we have the end. And there's just sprinklings of little stuff like that, along with a lot of colloquialisms.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that he does that a lot, but sometimes I forget until I'm re-listening to the audiobook how heavy these accents are. But this one was never quite overdone. I guess it's such a short book, but they really get the main tongue, I suppose, into this in a fun way. Like, you're saying like you're surprised I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed reading it and the experience, but not this. Like, I won't read this again, I don't think.
No, I won't.
I've heard Joyland is, people keep saying it's his apology. It's more
right.
of a
Okay.
great thing.
That'll be interesting.
I'm sort of more up for reading it now than ever before. Like I said, I went into Colorado Kid like, okay, let's do this. Like, not in a bad way. Just okay. Let's. I've had not a bad run but since we've been doing this podcast, I don't feel like I've read my favorite Kings for the show.
No, I suppose we haven't really, if we're honest, read that many brand new ones that are new to us.
We haven't done it, but I read Dolores Claiborne and Pet Sematary. We just never got around to shooting them, and then suddenly a year went by, and Dolores Claiborne was good.
See, there you go. You enjoyed that, did you?
I did, yes. It was a great one, Claiborne.
Yeah, I remember that was the second ever Stephen King book I read.
Oh, okay. We should definitely cover that. I really enjoyed it. I think I got notes, but I probably have to read it again. I really don't.
Yeah. But yeah.
Is Colorado Kid going to quench the Agatha Christie you might be craving for? Hell no. No. If you can get on board with that, is it a fun read? Hell yes. This one has a thumbs up from me. And I know, like, you seem baffled that, when we did The Outsider and other ones, it's like what does he want? Jesus. But
yeah, just this is.
But also, I think, I don't know,
difficult.
I don't rate these books fair because I changed the rating system per book. Because to be fair, I think that is fair because not every book is trying to be the same thing or going for the same thing,
Yeah.
or the scale on which I'm not comparing, but rating these things shifts. This is like with our film review. We haven't done many, but I kind of like to do some budget indie B movies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Again,
no,
system changes, but you know, seeing in the film sense, that is like seeing some filmmakers scrabble together a meager budget and do well, and it's still a piss poor film, but it just has that creativity, is more enjoyable than, you know, film of the week with The Rock or something.
Yeah.
I mean, at least just to change it up, we can still do film of the week with Rock, but we haven't done many film ones. No, when I look back at them, my friends, because you know, I think I know more people who watch films than read for sure. They're like, "Oh, what are the films you've done?" And I said, Greenland. Okay, yeah, that was all right.
Unhinged.
Unhinged. Oh, okay, yeah. Just on reflection, odd popcorn films. There was a weird clue thing got out on Twitter. So somewhere in this book, he refers to a Starbucks in Seattle in 1981.
Yes.
I didn't find that. I don't remember that. But someone tweeted or what have you said, yo, Starbucks did not exist in 1981, and there definitely wasn't one in Seattle. Stephen King replied, do not assume I don't know that. Everything in this book is in there for a reason. If you've spotted that, it's not a mistake. That's all he said. So this is where I do become dissatisfied and go, oh, that's wanky. Because everyone has basically jumped on Keystones. Basically, everyone is saying, oh, well, in that case, because this came out after The Dark Tower. I'm thinking in his head, he has a solution and it's some sort of wanky portal.
I'm just reading a bit on Wiki now. It's saying about do not assume that it was a mistake on my part. The constant readers of the Dark Tower series may realise that it's not necessarily a continuity error, but a clue.
Oh, he dropped in the Dark Tower series.
Yeah, well, the constant readers of the Dark Tower series may realise that it is not necessarily a continuity error, but a clue.
But that's what King said.
Yeah, that's what King said.
Oh, so if he's dropping in the Dark Tower, then I mean that I'm gonna just choose to ignore that. Do you know what I mean? It's just it's in The Outsider. Oh God, sorry, spoiler alert. But when you just turn around and just say magic, it's like, oh, okay, you've basically wasted this 90-year-old man's life. Because I don't think he was thinking magic.
No,
not a fan of this. And I'm when I look at chronologically, this was written after the complete series was finished. So I don't think there's going to be some sort of like just one paragraph in the background where the guy smoking was eating a lobster roll when he had sand on his shoes. Who was he? Don't know. Sort of wink.
Maybe you will find you'll meet the guy from this.
But I don't want to, is what I mean.
Okay.
It takes away the whole joy of that this book is about the mystery we don't get the answers to.
Right, okay, that's interesting.
And when you just, like I said, when you just say it's magic.
That's okay, this is a good point. I came away thinking it could only be, I think maybe because I watched Haven, I only imagined it being something unexplainable. What happened was unexplainable. There's no way it could have happened unless it happened the way that they said it did, which was they basically eliminated. So it was an impossibility for that guy to be on that beach choking on that burger at that time unless magic was involved. Because they constantly reference, if you explain everything else, then the unexplained is the only thing that's left.
But
the unexplainable is the only thing that can be left to explain it.
But the joy in this book for me was that I could relate to it. Was that I can understand, like I said, these it's not the same level in any way, but I can see a mystery that doesn't have an answer. We can look at the Bigfoot footage and say, yes, it's probably a man in a suit, but we don't know. We can look at the Loch Ness and say it's probably
right. Okay, so you don't want the
probably
answer, is what you're saying.
grain. But I don't think the answer is going to be aliens or portals or anything beyond the realm, because I mean, if it is, society breaks down and cats and dogs living together. Like I can't comprehend that. You know, I mean, you're asking me.
But you're saying that if the Yeti is probably a man in the suit, but it might not be.
Mm-hmm.
You're okay with that, but
that's not supernatural, right? That's just an animal that is elusive and rare.
Okay,
that's like a megalodon shark surfacing out of the deep, and us going, "What the fuck?" We knew they some sort of. Well, in this case, we knew they existed, but not in our.
Okay, yeah. There was a possibility still. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. I'm with you.
What's her name? Who's the Margaret Atwood lady who says, "I don't do sci-fi. I do like realist."
The Handmaid's Tale and all that.
Mm-hmm. Mm. She has, in my opinion, done sci-fi with clones and stuff like that. But she always says, everything I write has the possibility to happen with everything we have in society now. So she says nothing is sci-fi if it's grounded, even if it's future tech. It's still okay. If we're cloning sheep, it's one day we'll probably be able to clone people. Yeah. So if there's clones in this book, is it sci-fi? Because it's not.
Completely.
Difference between, I suppose, a NASA-based sci-fi and a Star Wars-based sci-fi.
Yeah. Okay, I understand.
I'll wrap this one there. I think we'll end up going around in circles.
Nice.
Yeah. What did you think if you read this first hard crime novel of King?
Yeah.
Interesting, kind of crap, or like cheap shot King, which I think all those have been said about this, and I agree with all of them and none of them simultaneously.
Yes, me too. I'm on board with that. Maybe not. We'll never know the answer.
So King puts a tweet out and says, "Who's Doctor?" Well, I feel like he did. I don't know. That's exactly my story. We're going to wrap it up around there. I want to thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed. Join us again next episode, and until then, support your local bookstores and have a great day.